Welcome to Sci-Fi Distilled. Today we have Captain Phil as our special guest, and we are going to talk about the 1984 classic, The Last Starfighter. Shall we do the ready? You ready? You ready?
Ready.
Greetings,
Greetings, Starfighter.
Been recruited by the
By the
Starfleet
Starfleet to defend the frontier
against
Dur and the Kodan Armada. We should have rehearsed that.
Yeah, we didn't rehearse that, but that's okay. You get the idea. So,
all right, Starfighters, here we go.
Phil, you have a lot of history with this movie, it sounds like, from when we talked earlier.
It's called from having no life.
Well, none of us do, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, talking about science fiction, right? We were all in the basement watching television or reading books and movies and whatever.
I'm in the basement right now, and but I saw it first run, but it stayed with me over the years, and I love the music, and I have the soundtrack.
Oh, you got the soundtrack.
Yeah, wow. I love the music. I actually want to approach Craig Scifi to do an interview on my show at some point, but
you should.
I haven't gotten around to it. He's on Facebook.
He made that movie. Like, he heard the Star Wars movie, and he was like, it has to be bigger and better than that. And you know what? He did. That score is fantastic.
I love that. And over the years, I was able to meet, the leads. I was able to lead Lance and Catherine Mary Stewart, and the picture you put up for this show was taken at Huntington Arts Cinema in 2012, Huntington, Long Island, where they showed the movie, and the two of them were there to answer questions, and I got to ask Lance a question. I said, "You got to do I lost you. Oh, am I still here?"
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. Oh, I see how. Oh, there I am. Yes.
Yes.
So that's really cool. So so I asked Lance. You got to do a William Shatner. You got to play yourself twice in the same movie, and what was it like to play against yourself? The same thing that Shatner did in The Enemy Within. The duplicate sort of thing. So he took all those things in good stride. But this picture you're looking at here, it was like the greatest day of my life, because Lance was like totally into it. He was like right there. But look who's hanging off of me, with that gorgeous face and those wonderful shoes and it's like 2012, because it was opposite a Space 1999 convention that was happening in LA that I couldn't go to because I believe school was in session. I had to be teaching that week, so I couldn't fly to LA for nonsense.
She looks great.
She looks amazing. And then behind her, I believe that's her Night of the Comet poster, I think.
Night of the Comet.
Yeah.
But the thing about those two were, they're not burned out. You see people who do these conventions and stuff, and they shake a million hands and they meet a million people, and it's hard. It's difficult because they want to act, they want to perform, and instead they're sitting in a hotel for a weekend shaking hands and selling 8x10s. I think it wears you down. Not these two. These two were like on. They were on, and they were up for any fan thing. They posed several times. That's the best picture, and it was just good. It was just really, really good. And I looked at the two of them and said, "You just made my day. You made my life." And it was just the greatest thing. And and I still believe. I said it to them then, and I believe it now, 8 years later. They're ripe for a sequel. These two could be in a movie, and their kids could be flying the next generation of gun stars and the next threat against Rylos. And it could be as simple as the first movie. It's not brain surgery. It's good versus evil.
Yeah. So. They both seem to genuinely love the movie. I was watching her in an interview, and she was adorable. Her favorite line from the movie is, she jumps out of the pickup truck, and the pickup truck crashes and kills the beta unit. And she says she turns around, they're blowing wind at me, and there's stuff burning in the background. And she goes, "I love you, Alex Rogan." She's like, "That was my favorite line. I love."
That's one of the best lines in the movie.
Yeah, and so cute.
I couldn't help but think about the beta unit too. I mean, he willingly sacrificed himself. So he's a Cylon. Did he get get like uploaded.
Yeah,
to,
and she's like, why
what
don't you
happened with
fight?
them.
He's like, we're not allowed to, but they never really fleshed that out. Why are they not allowed to?
Well, I think that makes it funny. You know, it was like, oh, by the way, fanboys in the audience are probably wondering why, if we can make this robot, why don't they fight their battles? Well, we're not allowed to. You know, and that's it. And that was just something to say, you there in the third row saying that, shut up. You know, that's what I always felt like when he did that. It was good. And do you see Lance's look on his face when he says that? He has this. He's laying in the bed and he has that smile. It was just like, it's like great stuff.
Hey, before we get too far, I did want
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's do this. Yep.
our drink.
It's a Centauri Sundown in honor of our old pal Centauri, and we'll lift our glasses to the Last Starfighter.
Pretty simple: vodka, grenadine, and sweet and sour mix. So stop that. So there's my. That's actually it. Looks like Hawaiian Punch. That's what it is.
Oh, you actually made it. I cheated tonight. Sorry.
I don't drink. I'm having coffee. But as long as you're not driving, everything's good.
Everything's good. So this poor movie, it was up against Karate Kid, and I think Ghostbusters. So it just didn't make it in the theater, but people discovered it, people found it, and it now is beloved. I don't want to call it a cult classic. It's not quite cult classic, but it is a beloved.
I think most of us kind of grew up in the 80s as far as, that were of that movie gearing teenage. I think a lot of us know, especially science fiction people, I should say, know this movie. I mean, my wife knows that she's not a huge science fiction fan, and she's seen it. So, because I think it appeals to a very broad audience, it's not hardcore science fiction by any means, but it's kind of that 80s. It's a fun, we're just here to have fun. We have no agenda other than entertainment, and I think it hits the mark. It's a simple story, good versus evil. And it's the kind of thing that all of us nerds that have grew up on Star Trek and all this other stuff saying, we really want this to be real, just leave, and get out there into space. I mean, that's really what it speaks to. It speaks to those kids that say, kind of like in Galaxy Quest, when the kids, they want it to be real, and then, oh my God, it's actually real.
So so Captain Phil, what was about this movie that captured your imagination?
Well, I was excited about the CGI aspect of it, even though it's very primitive. And when I saw the movie for the first time in the Patchogue Theater before they converted it to a performing arts center, I saw it and they had like a threeplex, whatever they call that thing. So I went to see Patchogue Theater. I think I spilled my popcorn. I think I remember that. And there wasn't a lot of people there either. I just remember watching it. And I think it was that sense, that whole Star Wars sense that I got from it. And we're like post-Jedi at this point, right? So Star Wars, a lot of the mystery of Star Wars had been revealed, and the shine was starting to wear off of that. I mean, I was 16 when Star Wars came out, and I really truly believed a galaxy a long time ago, far, far away, and I believed anything could be possible. And I would like go and look at the Ralph McQuarrie paintings, the pre-production paintings that they published in Star Wars, and imagine what is this world like and what are these robots like. And there's paintings of like the stormtroopers with lightsabers. Oh, so what's this like? And as Star Wars grew on, that mystery and that sense of wonder started to get away because of familiarity. But with Last Starfighter, I was like, oh, what would happen? What's going to happen next? What about Greg? What's going on with him? What's going to happen after everything? So from that point of view, that's really engaged. There it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those are the things I was looking at. Yeah, exactly.
That's signed by him, and there's a cell from Star Wars in there.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, okay, sweet.
That is sweet.
I couldn't see what that was. Yeah. Anyway.
I just did you were talking about Ralph McQuarrie. I had to show that.
But with this movie, I mean that really got me. But I think the other thing that got me was, and that when you were talking about it before, Michael, the reason why this movie is accessible is because it's our story. It's a trailer park. It's a single mother raising two boys. We don't know what happened to do they explain what happened to the dad?
They don't. They just say he does point them out that these are my folks.
Yeah.
The father, we don't know if he's just off.
Did he leave? Did he die? Did something happen?
They never address it.
Yeah.
And his mother, wasn't she in Hill Street Blues?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She was the commander's wife.
Yeah, so she was very familiar, to our eyes, but she just looked exhausted all the time. And I felt like that was a real sense of reality. And, this morning when I was eating my breakfast, I was thinking about that opening sequence where they traveled through the trailer park. And I think Disney's Beauty and the Beast mirrors that when Bella's walking through the town and they're all sitting,
That's an amazing comparison. Good thought.
I feel like we're introducing to everybody, and that's that whole trailer park scene. And the trailer park itself is unique, with the lighted sign and everything.
Yeah.
So,
and you get a sense of, like, the trailer park gives you this funny little sense of family. Like, they all know each other, and they are all doing things together, and yeah.
And they're all in the same boat.
And they're all in the same boat.
Everyone is the same. No one. Alex wants to be better.
They've made this community, kind of.
Yeah.
So
they're all coming together. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Running through that trailer park, you see for like blink and you miss it. You see in a red shirt Will Wheaton, who is often billed as being in this movie, but whatever his scenes were, they all got cut, so you barely see him. And there are a number of Star Trek alum in this movie. So we've got Will Wheaton, but we've also got the hitchhiker that gets out of the car and walks over to the video game. That's Mark Alamo.
Yeah.
You guys remind me how to pronounce his name. Who plays Golden Cat on Deep Space Nine?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dan Mason, Barbara Bosun, Nora Snow, Jeffrey Blake, and Meg Wiley.
Meg Wiley.
Meg Wiley is one of the Menagerie. She's one of those guys.
Yeah.
The Telosian. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word Telosian.
She wasn't one of those guys. She was the lead one.
Yeah, she was the lead Telosian. Yeah.
She was the lead Telosian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
You know what gives it away? It's her eyes. She has very, very distinct.
And I think her voice a little bit too. Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't, but I mean, if you look at her eyes, some reason when you see that, you say Telosian.
Yeah.
You see it immediately. To me, that's what before I saw it, I didn't even know who she was, and I didn't even know. I think when I saw the movie the first time, that it was a woman that played that part.
Yeah.
On the cage or the Menagerie, as we saw it, really before they released the pilot. You're like, why do I know her?
Yeah, she's really familiar.
Who is she?
I do that all the time. I know I know that one. Yeah.
It was her eyes. She has a gray color eyes. It's kind of a unique color and just very kind of almost beady.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the big Star Trek connection there for sure.
Oh yeah. But Nick,
so that's for Roy. That's for Roy. Roy,
yes,
I know you're listening. That was for
Roy. Okay.
Yeah,
but yeah, Nick Castle, the director Nick Castle, he knew there'd be comparisons to start. Like he knew going in, he's like, okay, there's gonna be comparisons. Let's see where we can change it up. And I think the writer, whose last name I'm about to butcher, Jonathan Betchelo, he wrote it. He says he was watching a kid play the video game, and he had been reading
the Once in Future King,
or Once in Future King, or Sword in the Stone, or something like that. And he just what if it was Sword in the Stone, but instead of a sword, it was the video game?
Yeah.
And it was genius. I think it was actually it's so simple. It's like you were saying at the top of the show. It's such a simple concept, but it works.
But if you go with Jonathan Bettuel. Bettuel, yeah. If you listen to the director's commentary, or there was like a making of on my DVD. There's a making of, and they interviewed him. He was working for an ad agency. So the story of the Last Starfighter, and he's writing screenplays on his lunch break. So the story of the Last Starfighter is Jonathan's story, because he, was getting out of his grind and his awful thing, and he went off to the stars, quote unquote, Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I really found a parallel, to that, and it was T.D. White, the Once and Future King, or Ted White, the Once and Future King, that they were, and then Centauri or Grigg says at some point in the movie, this isn't another one of your Excalibur games, is it, Centauri?
Yes, I caught that. Yes, he said no, it's not an Excalibur. Yeah, I caught that. Yeah.
So
yeah, great. I mean, so simple, so brilliant.
That was that was Robert Preston's last film. He did some TV stuff after, a couple of small TV bits, but this was his last actual film.
Yes, it's interesting that Lance Guest. Yeah, it's interesting that Lance Guest was up with two. They were both 65. Dan O'Hurley, who played Grieg, was 60 something, and Robert Preston was in his 60s, late 60s maybe, when he played Centauri.
Yeah, I could find out if you want, but Preston.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, he was just kind of working against two old and I shouldn't say old, but well-respected and seasoned veteran actors. And yeah, I mean, what a chance of a lifetime. And he held his own. He did great.
He really did. And I mean, when they talk about him, they talk about him as a young Henry Fonda or a young Jimmy Stewart. That's how the directors saw him, and they wanted him right away. I mean, I'm not sure what else he's done. I know he's done like a Friday the 13th, but I'm not sure what else Lance has done besides that.
The videotape, Lance Guest.
He did a horror. Yeah, he did one of the horror, but he did the horror with Dan O'Hurley, I think.
He played one of the Brody kids in Jaws: The Revenge, the last Jaws.
Okay, that's right, yeah.
Which was, we don't speak of that, and those of us that are Jaws fans. It's better than the third one though, with Dennis Quaid in 3D. That was just horrible. And
I think Jack Kirby did the Jaws 3D poster though, or did a Jaws 3D poster.
Maybe
so there's that.
Them, yeah.
The only good thing about
I think Lance was pretty much Halloween 2, and then I know he's done some stuff.
Halloween. It was Halloween.
Yeah, he did Halloween 2. Lou Grant, he had some TV appearances, St. Elsewhere.
Yeah. He's around. He pops up now and again.
He didn't have this huge leading man career though after this, and I really feel he held his own in this.
X-Files.
Yeah.
Probably just one-off type of, guest.
Yeah, the guest spots, yeah.
So, but hey, you know what? He was working right up. If you look at his filmography, he worked pretty much steady right up to this year. So, can't really fault the guy. He's working.
Yeah, the thing is that you're looking at this experience where it's like he's young and he's got this it's a major picture. It really is. I mean, no matter how you think about the effects, or how it compares, it holds its own. We're sitting here talking about it in 2020, so I think it really holds its own. And I just wish he had like more of a, starring role career, leading.
Yeah, he did. Well, I guess he did better than poor Sam Jones. Sam Jones did Flash and then kind of didn't get too far after that, but. Yeah, so it happens.
Catherine and him together, though, I absolutely love them together. And I mean, there is a little friction when she goes to the party, to the beach without him. But it's not the point of the movie. They don't. I mean, they really do love each other. When he's standing at the game, and she's there, and he's jealous because the guy who owns the truck brought it back. He's making a move on his girl. He has nothing to worry about. She loves him, and they give you that. She gives that to him with her face, and that's that makes her such a cool thing she did there, because in the second you're thinking like, well, is she messing around behind his back or whatever. It's like, no, she's not. She's with him. These two are for life, and then that you really get that sense. You didn't have to have it like. You didn't need exposition. You just could see it.
But it had to be the way. Like it couldn't be any other way. It had to be that way. Otherwise, the ending when she goes with him, it just wouldn't have had the same impact. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to Star Wars, I mean, he gets the girl, he kisses the girl, and the girl is not his sister. All right, sorry.
We're Roy's dealing with Star Wars, so let's not,
Yeah, we're doing Star Wars at Roy.
Okay.
The day after tomorrow, we'll do Star Wars at Roy. But yeah, there are a million Star Wars and Last Starfighter comparisons. Nick Castle knew it was coming. They were pretty brave and pretty gutsy to go with CGI, or what became CGI, what we call CGI now. It was groundbreaking for its time. It had never really been done before. They were making it up as they went along. Like they were actually learning it as they went. And
we really didn't see anything like that again until about 8 years later, till Jurassic Park. You know, when you think about it, because I mean, where it was
like a full CGI.
And what a change in 8 years.
Yeah.
You think of what was this, that was like 92, something like that. 90, when Jurassic Park? Somebody, come on, give me.
Early 90s, yeah. But
I mean, it was early 90s, so you're talking like anywhere from 8 to 10 years, and it was, amazingly different.
It was Ron Cobb who did that for The Last Starfighter, and he had also worked on Star Wars. And he was going for photorealism. Now, did he make it? Not quite. But what they did was leaps and bounds ahead of what they had back then. I was watching an interview with Dennis Murin, who is a visual effects supervisor at ILM, and he saw test footage, and he was absolutely blown away at like the technicality of it. He says, there's no way I could have programmed that. He said, I didn't even know how to pre-visualize it, never mind render it. And everyone watching was just like, eh. And he says, no, it should have been this should have been so just mind-blowing and groundbreaking, and people should have been like falling all over themselves at how awesome this was.
It's the swan. It's the swan on the lake. You see the swan on the lake gliding across the pond, and the water is smooth. You don't see underneath the feet pedaling like crazy. And that's Last Starfighter. The work that went into those sequences, especially the Gunstar sequences. Yeah. When they're finally when the money shot.
Oh, did we lose Phil? He's lagging a little bit. Let's see if he comes back.
Anyway, what I was going to say on that point, I think the other thing that you have to remember at the time was we've been in the Star Wars universe. We've seen things in 2001. He's in and out there.
He's in and out. You might want to boot him.
I think the audience had gotten used to Star Wars level effects.
Yes, which was models. So it was,
we look at Last Starfighter and we see this CGI, and it's clearly not real. I mean, it's clearly a computer generated. Even by that time day, you knew what it was. So I don't think, even though it was monumentally impressive for them to have accomplished it and done it as well as they did, I think from the audience's perspective, they were like, well, Star Wars was way better than that.
Well, yeah, because of the way it looked.
Audiences are fickle that way, and they don't say, so we lost Phil.
He'll come back. I mean, being honest, they were going for photorealism, but being really, really honest about it, now to my eyes in 2020, it looks animated.
Yeah, it does.
It just looks like animation. I mean, it is. It's computer animation versus old-fashioned animation.
It looks like a cartoon rather than.
It looks like
Oh, here he is. He's coming back.
He's coming back. All right. So there's a guy from ILM. His name is Okun. Okun, which cracks me up because it's the same name as the Brent Spiner character in Independence Day. But anyway, he's like, okay, I'm doing the math on this. He's like, how many cells do you have to render, and how long does it take each cell, and And he said, when is the movie due by? The movie's due in 6 months. You have 17 months of work ahead of you. He said, use models. He told him, use models. I have 5 model houses lined up to build your Gunstar and film it. And they were like, no, Ron Cobb was like, no, we're going to animate it. We're going to actually do this on the computer. We're going to animate it. And they did. I don't know how they did it, but they had to drop a whole bunch of detail. And I think that's where we lost people. It didn't reach the level they wanted. So
the computers of the time, you have to remember what we were dealing with.
Oh, it was 2 gigs. The computer, it was a Cray, and it was 2 gigs. And the Ron Cobb held up his phone like this, and he goes, I have more power in my phone now than we did back then.
We had talked about Babylon 5 back in the 90s, and they used to have complete arrays of Amiga computers rendering footage to get 10 seconds, 15 seconds of Starfighter footage. And look at that now. You watch that, and you can tell that that's computer generated, even though that's still better than what the Last Starfighter was.
Yeah.
So, to me, 84 to pull that off, and as well as they did, you really don't realize what a feat it really was to do it, and as well as it came out. I think Phil is struggling with bandwidth.
It might be bandwidth. Come back, Captain Phil. Come back.
Trying to come back, but so
he's trying.
We'll keep going. So we can take some questions.
Yeah, is anybody, what's people saying? Well, let's give a shout out to all our usual viewers, because it's the same folks a lot of times. Roy is here. Sue is here.
Bruce.
Michelle is here.
Rob Barnes, Chris LaRoche. Thanks, guys. Everybody for coming. Always appreciate it.
I see some new faces. Welcome, guys. Welcome. How are you? Still no Captain Phil. He just can't come back.
His internet must have went poopy.
His internet must have gone goofy.
So, you guys have any
Questions or comments? Roy says we're spoiled today for comparison. Yeah, we are. We are nowadays. Bruce, I was laughing when Captain Phil first froze. Bruce typed dipped in carbonite like he was frozen in carbonite.
You know what I love? If you've seen Blue Harvest, which is the Family Guy, that's the first movie.
Yeah, that's what they call Star Wars. Yeah.
When they did the carbonite scene, of course, Peter's like his butt's in the air, and then in Return of the Jedi, they melt him, and the first thing he does is fart. He's like, "Oh, I've been holding that for."
Oh, that's so gross.
I don't know why I found that so funny.
Oh,
and then it says 3 participants. Where are you, Phil? It says joining.
Joining slowly. But that was Bruce that made that comment about carbonate. And while we're talking about Bruce, can we just say next week?
Oh, I got the graphic. Yeah.
Oh,
Bruce,
you got the graphic.
somewhere. Hang on.
Next week, we're going to have young Master Bruce live all the way from Canada.
Let me get the share screen thingy.
You made your graphic already. Good for you. Look at you.
Make a graphic.
Head of the game.
There we are. We're going to do Stargate SG-1 with Mr. Playfair. And of course, we'll obviously have to talk about the film which launched it, even though it was loosely based on, well, I didn't say loosely. It was pretty much.
It was pretty, yeah.
Interestingly enough, on Stargate, there are actually 3 books, novels from the original Stargate, and then there's 2, which the following story from the movie does not follow SG-1 at all. But
oh, does it? Oh, I know that.
No, they're completely different. But it's okay. They're it's worth reading if you're interested, if you're really into that universe. But of course, SG-1 was such a great hit. What a great show.
Oh yeah, and then Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe, and Stargate.
That'll be next week.
Wasn't there another?
Phil is still struggling to get in there. I don't know why. It's not.
Phil, you might want to reboot your router or reboot your modem or something like that.
And I keep telling him every time it carries. Wait, there he is. Ta-da!
There he is. Hi. Welcome back.
Welcome.
The audio is still connecting.
Am I back?
Yes,
You're back.
I'm on my cell phone.
Oh, that's okay. We'll make it work.
Did the computer took a poop, huh?
I don't know what happened. It just froze up on me. So
yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, you were we were talking about how you were in like a Han Solo carbonite.
Yeah, you were in a carbonite pose for a second.
As I should be. As I should be. Sorry about that, guys.
Well, I just wanted to hear you. We were talking about the CGI and how it was leaps and bounds ahead of its time, and yet nobody seemed to care.
Yeah, and I said along the lines, it was like you're watching something very effortlessly done, so you don't see the work that goes into it. Yeah. You know, it's something I related it to a swan, going across the pond smoothly. You don't see the feet, the little web feet pedaling. Right.
What I was saying, after you got kicked out there, was I think a lot of our audiences are so fickle that we're so used to the Star Wars of special effects, and you get to this, which is clearly almost like cartoon like. I think from an audience perspective, it didn't look that great.
Yeah.
What we were saying. Now we can appreciate, because we know what the computers were like at the time, what they had to work with. I can't imagine how long it took to render even those 20-something minutes. There's only about 20-something minutes of special effects in the film. But to render that probably took them, like you said, 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, there's a making of documentary on my DVD set, and they go into that in great detail, and they talk about actually writing the software while they were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of crazy. But to go back to what you said about like it being it's looking primitive and stuff like that, I think that's where Craig Safin's score picks up that, and the story. The story is really about a boy in a trailer park. The story isn't about a CG generated, space fighter. It's about him. And the fact that they come back to the trailer park at the end of the movie, that's really the star of the movie. And the gun star and Rylos and all that stuff are a means to get there. And it's really about that, and I think that's why it lasts, and you forgive it, And at the time in the 80s, the only place I really was disappointed was the cave sequence, which they talk about in that, and the very end when the command ship hits the moon. I was like, wow, it's a really small moon or a really big command ship.
Yeah, the command ship. And because
speaking of that shot, though, you know what it reminded me? Well, I shouldn't say what reminds me of this shot was in The Fifth Element when the Mondajiwan ship crashes into the moon.
Yeah, a little bit.
Same kind of a feeling that it, like, you see it going, you expect it to just get smaller and smaller and smaller and then crash. And all of a sudden it's like boom, because you're
same exact thing. Yeah.
So it had that, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It didn't look, the scale didn't look right to me at all.
And you know what also kind of killed it is the crash is preceded by maybe one of the best lines in the movie when What's-His-Bucket flips his thing over and they go, what do we do now? And his thing goes, we die. And that was such a great moment, such a great line. And then it just didn't.
Very Klingon.
Yeah, it was very Klingon. Yeah.
We're done. We lost. That's it.
We're done. We died. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the great moment at the ending was when that showed up they showed up at the trailer park. It's every nerd boy's dream. He gets everything.
And then he goes, and then right away the brothers like playing the game. The brothers like, okay, I'm next.
It's so great. And that's really where. And I'm watching him go down the gangplank, and I'm looking at his helmet, and his helmet's all fogged up, and I'm saying, well, they want to like disguise his face. They don't know, but I'm like, can he breathe in that thing? This is why it's fogged up. Is he like gasping for air? Because it's completely fogged up.
Disconnected from the ship's side.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
You forgot to flip off the visor.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the comments. Chris LaRoche is like, I was disappointed there was no sequel. I know that the novelization was, interestingly, by Alan Dean Foster, who also did the novelization for, we were just talking about it. Roy Relquist, you were just talking about David Hirsch the other day. And Martin Bend is saying it's a coming of age movie. Yeah, it absolutely is a coming of age movie. Now, Bruce is saying, we were going to save this to last because this is some fun stuff here. But Bruce is reminding us there exists The Last Starfighter, the musical.
Yes,
folks, there's a musical.
Yes. It's off Broadway. I learned about it. I used to read this. Am I losing you again?
No, we're here.
It was off Broadway, and I was reading this blog back 20 years ago called ASCII, and it was all about early computer bulletin boards. And so I was interested in that. I would read it and about early computer history. And in one of his posts is this Last Starfighter musical, which I missed seeing because I lived on Long Island and it was in Manhattan, and I missed seeing about like 2 weeks or something. So I was like, oh my goodness. But it's there was not really a lot of special effects or anything, but there's a song in it called Starlight, Star Bright, stuff like that. So I imagine that was quite the thing. And that's a very, very cool thing. And yeah, there was that.
But yeah, as we were discussing though, I think this film really would, if somebody wanted to, could make a sequel to it, a modern sequel, and I think it would work.
The time is now. The time is now, and the two of the leads are still alive. And it just rinse, repeat. It's a great story. It's very, very appropriate. Just go for it. There's no history. You don't have to worry about midichlorians. You don't have to worry about canon. There is no canon.
Right, because they didn't flesh out a lot of the story about the frontier or any of the stuff or any of the races. There really wasn't any backstory to any of it. We really didn't know who Centauri was, why he was recruiting starfighters, that other than try to make money. Clearly he was like a bounty hunter for starfighters, I guess, or something. But So yeah, I mean, like you said, the universe is wide open. They can really go in any direction with it. All they need to do is get a gun star in there and somebody flying it.
And you're good to go. Yeah. Don't make it too complicated. Now I know the writer, Jonathan Betchell, he actually wanted it to be a standalone piece. He did not want a sequel. But
well, too bad. I don't care.
If he doesn't own the rights to it anymore, he has no say.
Write him a check, he'll be fine.
I think that might be what's stopping a sequel. The same way we were talking about the Buckaroo Banzai sequel being very complicated because of the rights and who owns what. I think there may be a similar situation with this movie.
Well, we don't even know. I mean, we all love it, but I mean, Hollywood's very, to them, this is an old movie that why would we remake this? It wasn't even that successful back then. So, Hollywood's fickle, and, they're kind of weird. Who knows what they're going to remake? They keep going back to the blockbusters and try to remake that rather than taking something like this that was good and saying maybe we can build on that if they're looking for ideas, but instead they just remake what they've already had.
Yeah.
Usually bugger it all up, as we know.
Yeah. They have a tendency to do that.
Yes, they do.
They just, I don't know, if there's enough money in anything, like you think they'd see like that this movie can still make money, but whatever.
Yeah, but on that note, I'm very happy they haven't redone the effects. They haven't gone back and
I think there is a redo floating around out there. I've seen some stuff on YouTube. I don't know if they did the whole movie or just some of the scenes.
I'm sure people can
find the actual video game. You can play it. There's an emulator. Somebody actually made the video game.
Yeah, there is a video game.
It came out like going to do it. Atari had the game built, and I don't know exactly what happened. I forgot. But they didn't end up finishing it, and it just kind of fell away. Obviously, as the movie didn't really become a huge hit. But some fanboys actually, within the last 10 years, built the game so you can go on and it's the same, similar controls and layout.
But they didn't do it until like 6 years after the movie, which is kind of not capitalized.
Oh, no, this game that you can download is very recent. Like Atari originally was going to make the game for their console way back, in the 80s. But just did they started it, but they never finished it. And
in the DVD, in the DVD extras, it goes through the merchandise, and one of the items is a Nintendo cartridge, Last Starfighter game. So it was from the original Nintendo, the bigger cartridges. And Galoob made a test run on figures.
That's right. Terrible. I knew that. They did, and then they never made them. Yeah. Which is so weird because, admittedly, it didn't do well because it's like we were just talking about money, follow the money. It didn't do well in the theaters, but it held the title as like the biggest video hit, like the biggest hit on video for a number of years. As soon as it got released. It did
really well in the rentals.
Yeah.
Which is probably where a lot of people ended up seeing it. You go in the video store and you're looking, it's like, hey, let's see this.
Let's see this, yeah.
And they're looking for some
yeah.
And it probably works really, really well, especially the CG on the small screen. Maybe at the beginning of the VHS, rental revolution, this is a movie that looked good on your little TVs. Now, of course, with the HD stuff, every little problem comes up. But yeah, I think this movie looked pretty good. I don't know if I own the VHS of it. I just have the DVD of it.
I just watched it in HD on the 60-inch, 70-inch monitor, and I thought it still looked pretty damn good. I mean,
Yeah, me too. So, just again, those cave scenes push me out of the the sense of wonder a little bit, but I forgive them that because their heart's in the right place.
Yeah, it was. Again, it was. That's for what they had to work with, the time frame and the equipment of the day.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I put these guys behind me here
is our Babylon 5 friends.
Because I really feel this movie paved the way for Babylon 5, and it helped the way things looked in Babylon 5. I mean, just the Starfighter, and of course, Babylon 5's story is a lot thicker and more involved in everything. But the way they used the technology and the way they brought, that new, this is a real spacecraft. This is how spacecrafts go up, down, left, right. The pitch and yaw and everything. They brought that into Babylon 5, and I really was seeing that in those flying, Gunstar sequences. So I imagine, Joe Straczynski, as he's getting to work on the new Twilight Zone in 1986 and Captain Power, and all those things he was working on back in the 80s, looking at the Last Starfighter and saying, this is the way to go for Babylon 5, because Babylon 5 was already made in his mind, years right around there. It surfaced in a novel of his, I believe, that came out in the 80s, the name Babylon 5. So it was working on it. And I really feel like, while it didn't lead in the computer revolution, much to the disappointment of the effects house that they created for this movie, it really showed JMS what to do.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Good point.
Because Mike Okuda just posted a video recently about when they were doing Next Gen and how they basically sent out to all the effects houses. I guess this is a normal thing when they're going to do a show, and basically say, show us what you got. And said, we want, and it was basically, some of them were CGI, complete CGI sequences of the Enterprise, using the traditional, what we, not the D obviously, but the Enterprise refit, but because that's all they had to work with at the time. But it was interesting to see that they were looking in that direction for TNG, but then they said, no, we're going to go back and do the models, which is what they did obviously all the way through Voyager and Enterprise, I think. So,
but they did have the sequence in Wrath of Khan with the Genesis effect, and it worked for that,
Right. That was definitely animated.
That was state of the art. What's that, 82? So that's 2 years prior, but it's not the effects laden. You're moving from live action to CG like they did with the Star Car, and when Alex is climbing up into the Gunstar and stuff like that. But yeah.
And that in the film, that was supposed to be a computer generated image.
It was,
yeah.
It wasn't trying to be real. It's saying this is a kind of a, this is what we think it'll look like, the concept. So it kind of worked double for them because it didn't have to be perfect because it wasn't real.
So let's talk about the Gunstar itself, which didn't have any other name beyond Gunstar 1. Like, they just called it Gunstar 1. But for all the other CGI flaws, the ship itself was actually, like, every ship review I've seen on YouTube, they love this ship. They really like the ship. And I couldn't help but notice how big the ship was. Like, I guess I got used to Vipers and X-Wings, where you could just run and kind of maybe climb a short ladder or just run and jump into it yourself. This thing had, like, an elevator to take you up to the top. It was massive. But everyone loves this ship.
Yeah. And Death Blossom.
Death Blossom. A weapon of last resort.
A weapon of last resort.
I think apparently it leaves you hanging out there once you launch the thing. You better have blown everything up because
it spins. You're possibly dead from centripetal force or whatever.
I'm like, I don't know.
How is he not like just plastered to his seat, right?
Again, I'm going back to the director's commentary. I mean, to listen to them talk about that sequence is kind of hilarious, and they thought it itself, it was kind of silly, the whole thing when it actually happened and he's spinning around the chair and stuff like that. But compare it to what came before. I mean, the ships that came before are basically World War II fighter planes, This is a spacecraft. And it's space. You can make it as big or small. The thing is built around the needs of the weapon, not around, we need to make this fly around.
It was pretty much a giant flying weapon. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, this is the weapon and this is the package we're putting it in. And here's where the dude who's shooting has to sit. And he sits in the middle. I mean, I guess you can compare it to like a B-17 a little bit. And he's the turret gunner.
Right.
Yeah.
But are you talking about, again, it's a three-dimensional, like, again, Star Trek. He's very intelligent, but his tactics suggest two-dimensional thinking.
Yeah. How long did it take Star Trek to figure out that they were in space?
Kind of yes and kind of no, because Alex could pivot. Like, I remember him going down, not just in Death Blossom, but I remember him going down.
Like you said, it
was like a gyroscope. Which kind of implies 3D. I mean, that's...
Think about like the Millennium Falcon, where he had the top and bottom turrets on the Millennium Falcon, and they were kind of in those, and he could go in within a certain. Actually, that ship only can go 180 degrees in any direction, but
Yeah.
for the most part. But basically, I think it was similar. It was like a belly turret, but it was on the nose, a chin turret.
Yeah, kind of like a belly turret, but on the nose. But I have to imagine because it fired it like the
guns were out here like an X-wing.
But it fired from out here, so he had to actually move it wherever.
The guns might have been articulated on.
I don't know if it had articulated guns. It was loaded for bear.
The guns were moving around. The guns were moving around. Yeah.
It had some kind of a photon. It had some kind of a laser. And it had some kind of
a missile. Lasers, and it had a missile. Because at one point he shoots the missile and it goes.
Yeah, he has missiles.
Yeah, before we went on the air, Mary Beth and I were like, talking about anime and stuff like that, and the missiles. I mean, I'm going to drop Robotech in here. The missiles. Here we go.
Robotech.
The missiles, when he shoots the missiles back at the command ship, I mean, it's very Robotech. You're watching. I mean, the only thing that was missing was the contrails. But the way they cross over, and they take out the bridge.
Yeah,
and it's such a great shot. And I mean, even in 2020, I watched those missiles hit the bridge, and I'm like, "Take that, you bastards!" This is great.
It's kind of like Berg Industries replay. One shot, never mind.
Yeah. Instant replay. One shot, every following shot goes to the same location.
Yeah.
What was that called? I can't remember the name of that gun.
ER1.
ER1. Where's Kent when I need him? But yeah. Everything old is new again. They just keep reinventing ways to kill each other, but it's all cool, right?
And the director was talking that he wanted what was happening on the screen in this, the battle sequence at the end to exactly mirror the video game. And it did. It was really, they wanted the game and what happened on screen to be the same. And if you look at the game when he's playing the game early in the movie, it basically is, it's like it's the same thing. So
which really makes me, I guess, had the movie been more of a financial success, we would have seen a game, because at least a commercially produced game that would have been more popular, because it's so ripe for that. I mean, here is the movie. You have a video game in the movie. You make a video game of the video game.
Oh, a video game, yeah.
But
I remember playing the Tron video game, in the 80s. And I remember, I used to go to Nathan's in Coram, Long Island to play video games, all arcade games. I would go with a bucket of quarters. I sucked. So, I would last for about a half hour or so. I would go through $5 or $10 worth of quarters. And, but me and my best friend at the time would joke and say, this is training. They're training us to fight in some war. We're going to be like, well, I would have never been enlisted because I stunk. But I mean, those are the things we were talking about prior to that movie coming out. I just remember playing Gorf, and Tron, and what was the one, the vector graphics one?
Space Invaders.
Space Invaders.
Tron.
Invaders and asteroids and.
Asteroids, yeah. And Centipede. Oh, and Battle. Wasn't there like a battle tank one where it had two handles? Battle Zone, yeah. So Tron,
and there was Dragon Ace too. Dragon Ace also, which used a laser disc, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, that one was really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And expensive.
And knew which way to go. Actually, they made it. Well, they had a cartoon of that actually.
Yeah, Don Bluth Studios. Yeah, and Secret of Nim. Same thing. So
yeah, that's right.
Cool.
Tron would have been the next biggest of the era, the next biggest movie that used a lot of computer. But when you look at the computer animation on Tron versus the computer animation on Starfighter, like Tron looks very linear and blocky, and everything is kind of rigid. And at least Starfighter has achieved some amount of fluidity. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but they had round planet and movement and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can see where improvements had been made.
They were talking about Tron, and they said that the thing with Tron, of course, it's 2 years earlier, was that Tron was working with the polygons and things that they could actually make work. So they made it work in this computer world of Tron, but they didn't have any real life copies of it. What they were doing in Starfighter was they were trying to make things that looked like they existed in the real world.
Yeah.
And maybe they did it, maybe they failed, but that was the goal. Whereas Tron, we're inside a silicon chip. We're inside, a computer. So, and Tron blew it. I mean, story-wise, I always feel Tron blew it. Tron it was such an exciting concept and an idea at the time, and it came away to be such a soulless, empty thing, in my opinion. And I mean, the closest thing to it was they could have been like some sort of Christ-like analogy where he created this world in his own image, and he has to go down and jump into the MCP and sacrifice himself to save them. Okay, but they don't really hit that, and it was all goofy and stuff. And I'm like, when I listened to the commentary on Tron, they didn't even talk about the story. They just talked about the effects and stuff. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, not only is the movie boring, but these guys are boring too. Whereas Starfighter, even, the heart of it is always boy moves from boyhood to manhood. That's what it's about, and that's really, and he has his support system. He has his woman by his side. She loves him. Granny's going to be okay. He saved the galaxy. Yay. What's next?
What's next?
What's next? And I'm still asking that question in 2020. What's next? I want it now.
So our industrious audience, they're clever people. They've dug up some links if anyone wants to check them out. Bruce posted a link to that Last Starfighter the musical with pictures, production photos. So always cool to check that out.
I'll check that out when I'm off.
Rob Barnes found the game.
And Rob Barnes found a game, or at least he found a fan-made game.
Yeah, that's I don't think there's an official one that's online. So you guys have any questions? Go ahead and ask them.
Questions or comments? Now is the time while you have the good captain with you.
Commenting.
The captain loves the sound of his own voice, so ask away.
Phil is the Starfighter expert.
Don't make us start talking about Robotech again. That could go sideways real quick.
I've never seen it, so I don't really have any frame of reference.
Bruce just asked about Reboot. I remember Reboot vaguely.
Yes, TV show.
Sci-Fi Channel back in the day.
Yeah, Reboot. Yep.
Reboot. Yeah.
I think it was. I don't think it was Sci-Fi Channel. I think it was like a Saturday morning sort of thing.
It
didn't start till about 92.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Reboot was in the era of like Farscape and Lex for some reason. That's when I was seeing it. Maybe it was on before that, and I somehow just stumbled across it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know Lex and Farscape always get put in the same kind of.
You know why? Because where I watched it, they were on Friday night. They were back to back.
Yeah, they're not really the same.
No, but they were aired. They were aired together. Yeah, they were aired back to back. Like one was on at 9 and one was on at 10. Probably Lex was on at 10.
Really weird.
Yeah. Lex was really weird.
I never finished it. I have the whole thing on DVD. I should watch it since I'm quarantined.
Yeah, I told you I knew somebody in Tampa that actually put together a Lex convention in Nova Scotia in Halifax.
But did anybody go? Like, did he actually get?
I guess he showed me pictures of it, and they had a bunch of the cast.
Oh God.
Out there, and I don't know why it was in Halifax, but that's where they chose to do it. I never did find out why Halifax. Maybe I don't know. But I was like, yeah, they were really into that show, and I'm like, really? It's a tough watch. I mean,
we had a lot of Lex. We had a lot of Lex guests at Icon. Back on Long Island, the Icon convention at Stony Brook University, they had Lex guests all the time. They had the male lead. I forget his name, but he was down. He was awesome. He was crazy. It's just like a great guy. But yeah, I remember that a lot. But I think we just had him though. I don't think we had any of the other cast. But yeah, Nova Scotia, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I've been to Halifax, a city like any other. It just seemed like an odd choice to have a convention.
Yeah.
It's an odd show. We're off track. Sorry, guys.
We were. That's okay. We do that sometimes. Rob is asking about Automan. I have no memory of Automan.
I remember Automan. I think it was like Channel 9 or something like that. And the thing I remember about Automan, it was like a Tron. It was vibing on the whole Tron thing, and he like used the power of computers or whatever. And the reason why, I just remember this from the TV guide, the reason why women liked Automan was because he would like become anything they needed him to be. you know. So if they needed him to fix something, he would do it or whatever. So there was like this whole thing with Automan. So yeah, I remember that.
Oh, Bruce solved the mystery. Bruce says Lex was filmed in Halifax.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even know Halifax had a film industry.
Neither did I. Sorry, Halifax. I know Toronto and Vancouver are doing swell, but I didn't know about Halifax.
I would have lost that bet. I thought their claim to fame was a big explosion and Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the explosion. No. Yeah, they had an explosion. Everyone from Boston ran up to help. I remember that. Yeah,
like blinded people. It was so big.
It was huge.
And that's the place, Halifax, Nova Scotia is the place where Mr. and Mrs. Capt and Phil had their honeymoon in 1990.
You honeymoon in Nova Scotia. That's interesting. Yeah. How was that?
You know what? Nova Scotia's great. It's just like Maine. There's just less Canadians.
That's good. I like that.
Martin Ben is asking about Red Dwarf. Yes, Martin, that was our second episode. You got to go back and watch old episodes. We've already did Red Dwarf.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, you can watch. That was like the first. Was that the first one?
This is the second one. Second one. The first one was Babylon. Then we did
Babylon
Red
5.
Dwarf.
Then we did Red Dwarf. Yeah.
Unlike
did Babylon 5. I missed it. I got to go back and watch it.
Go back and watch. It was our first episode. We didn't know what we were talking about.
Such a failure. Oh, I have to do that. Oh. Yeah.
Yes, they're all on YouTube and on, of course, the Facebook.
It's all on YouTube and it's on the Sci-Fi page. Unlike Roy, who is incredibly ambitious, doing it twice a week, we're just like once a week is enough.
Once a week is more than enough. Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, it is. Just to do anything in this situation. I mean, I'm doing my radio show remote from this room. And it's really I always tell them when I'm doing a remote broadcast, it's like riding your bicycle backwards down a hill with a paper bag on your head. It's just like really, really difficult. So yeah, but these have been great. I mean, the thing you did with the Okudas the other day was just like amazing.
Wow.
And
Thank you.
It's like the best convention panels I've been to. It's just the coolest thing ever. So could this possibly be, going off topic a little bit, could this possibly be the future of science fiction conventioning?
You never know.
We don't know. We're just trying to amuse ourselves and pass the pandemic time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't, won't be us. Nobody wants to hear us talk.
Not true. Not true. There's a lot of meat and potatoes in here. Some of the things when, some of the guests you've had, I mean, like remove Captain Phil from the equation, but some of the guests you've had, the ones I've seen, have been like top notch, and it's been fascinating, and it's really energized. Pardon the pun. My fanish proclivities. It's like it's a breath of fresh air. And the same goes for Roy. I mean, I literally was falling in love with Roy and David Hirsch the other night when Roy had David on.
Roy has had amazing guests. Yes. Roy is knocking it out the park. Never mind our show. You should be, if you're into the history, if you want to know the roots of everything, where it all started. I know I jokingly say all roads lead to Star Wars, but Star Trek. But if you really wanted the roots of a lot of sci-fi, you should be watching Roy's show, because he's covering kind of a lot of where it all began.
Yeah.
You're removed 2 steps in rank.
But thank you, Phil. We appreciate that. I should really say thank you to Rizzo, because I don't know why, but he's letting me come along for this ride, and it's been awesome.
I can talk for an hour.
There are people who are far more qualified than me. And he was like, yeah, you'll do.
We get along when we do tours, and so it seems.
We get along when we do tours. Someone asked if we were fighting, like a married couple were fighting.
So much on a set tour up in Ticonderoga.
Yeah. So funny. But I have to confess, I love doing this. Like, I've actually really enjoyed researching. Every week, the next topic, I've loved researching it.
He does more than me, guys. I just put the graphics together and show up on Wednesday nights. I try to watch whatever it is. I try to rewatch whatever it is we're going to talk about. If it's a movie, it's easy. It's the TV series. Like, I hadn't seen all of Red Dwarf, so I was trying to binge it.
Oh yeah, you have to crank. Yeah, you have to
It's hard
crank.
to binge Red Dwarf.
Oh my goodness! When Roy asked me to do One Step Beyond, all I could think about was the song from Madness, and I'm like,
I know. I think of that too. One
Step Beyond.
beyond. Yeah, I know that song.
But I mean, I remember watching. I mean, it was a good way to get started though, and it was fun. But at the same time, I was like, oh Roy, you're making me watch this thing. Oh, I mean, I love you, man. I wouldn't do this if I didn't love you.
Yeah, Rob Barnes says we should have got Lance and Catherine. I'm like, well, I don't have contacts for them.
I actually sent a link. I sent a link to Catherine.
Oh, just well, I didn't see her log in, so
yeah. But I did send her a link, and maybe who knows? Maybe you can get her on at some point.
If they want to do it, either one of them.
If they want to come talk to the likes of us,
Starfighter reprise. We could do Night of the Comet.
We can do Night of the Comet. Yep.
It seems to me Catherine is up for anything. Catherine seems to be a good sport and seems to be up for things. If you talk to Roy, I went for one of these screenings for Night of the Comet and met her, and there she is posed with Roy with her arms around him. How dare you, Roy? That's my girlfriend, But, I think she could be up for it, but you never know. But I did send the link for this.
Yeah.
So hopefully.
Well, in all honesty, Doug Drexler and the Okudas, I don't want to say they're good friends, but I'm friends with them. So I can at least send them a Facebook message and they will respond. Let's put it that way. So, I had that connection already. I kind of ran out of celebrities.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll dig some more up somehow.
We'll dig some more up.
Yeah. Now you're on to the Uncle Floyd of celebrities, Captain Phil.
We're just going now. You have Phil, now Bruce next. No.
Don't say that. Oh.
Very happy.
Oh, you guys are cruel.
Love you, Bruce.
That's great. Oh, it's so funny.
Oh man. So, all right, guys. Well, I think we've probably beaten Starfighter to death. I don't know.
We've beaten it to death.
Comments. Feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Bring the Last Starfighter back. Those two are alive. Bring it back. Make something made for TV movie, Sci-Fi Channel movie. It can be done. It doesn't have to be a blockbuster. Just get it out there.
This stuff too, but I'm with you.
Bruce wrote Sob. You've hurt our buddy.
He knows I'm kidding with him. He knows I'm teasing.
Play my violin.
Have you people met me? I'm a wise ass. What I do. Sorry.
Maybe we should have prefaced that before we started all this. All right, kids.
All right, guys. Well, as usual, everybody stay safe, stay separated.
Stay safe. Stay separated.
Let me do my up and comings.
Yeah, what do you got coming on your show?
Don't forget,
So I have for the radio, I have on Friday, I've done a pre-record, which has nothing to do with science fiction, but I'm on 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Friday morning with a podcast called The Utopian, which is talking about climate change and in the era of COVID-19. So and I picked music to go with that. And then Captain Phil's Planet it airs live from this basement, alternate Thursdays, 3 to 5 p.m. So the next one is June 4th. I tentatively have Mark Okrand scheduled, the Klingon language dude.
I know him, yes.
So I'm working. I'm not 100% sure because it's been a little difficult just to get things up and running, and I always worry about bringing somebody on the phone when I'm going remote. So I'm still working on that, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be around. So that's those, and I'm also on every Tuesday morning from 6 to 8 a.m. filling in for a DJ who had a little bit of a brain seizure, so he got sick, so he's okay. But I've been filling in for him like the last 2 months. So if you want to hear my voice, you can listen to that. www.wusb.fm or just Facebook message me and I'll send you the MP3s.
USB Stony Brook.
Yeah, you can we'll post it on our Facebook page.
Yeah, send it to us. We'll put it up on the Facebook page. So if you haven't seen enough of our, as Rizzo says, our wise asses, we will be with Roy on Friday night talking even more about Star Wars. Because that's a big movie. There's a lot to say about Star Wars.
life-changing for me. I really have to say.
Life changing for all of us. Yeah.
It was a turning point.
Yes. Yes, Bruce. Roy still loves you. We've known Bruce forever.
Bruce,
And then next week, Bruce, if he forgives us, we'll come here on the show and talk about Stargate. So that's what we got going on.
Ah, Stargate, huh?
Stargate.
one with just a hint of the movie.
Okay, so you
can't talk about
of movie.
you can't talk about one without talking about the film, the Kurt Russell.
So it's the first series. You're not going to go through all the sequels and stuff yet.
For this one, just SG1.
Keep it simple, yeah.
Call me up when you want to do Robotech.
Hey, sign me up. I'm all about Robotech. If you ever want to talk about it on the show on Captain Phil, I'm there.
Well, I don't want to extend you too long, but this is great fun. I'd love to have you guys on at some point in the future. So let's figure that out, and we could just have you on maybe sometime in June or July. It's every other week, so
yeah.
But I'd love to have if you were available, on during the day, 3 to 5, that'd be great. I mean, are you guys running around?
We all have lots of time lately.
Okay, so you're all locked in like me.
We all have time. Yep.
And on that note, everyone who's on Facebook right now and listening to me and looking at my terrifying face, I wish you to stay safe and stay healthy and wash your hands. And if you're an essential worker, thank you.
Yes.
They're not paying you enough.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. All right. On that note, we will say good night, and we will see you. Actually, we'll see you Friday, but we'll see you next week back here.
Farewell, Starfighters.
All right.
Farewell, Starfighters.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for inviting me. Great fun. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Stop.